Fernando Alonso was an amazing driver and arguably the greatest of his generation. He went toe-to-toe with Michael Schumacher and came out on top. He challenged for championships in cars that frankly shouldn't have even been challenging for wins. His ability to extract the maximum amount of performance from the car is a skill not possessed by many drivers, and there is no doubt that Fernando Alonso is one of the top 10, maybe even top 5 drivers of all time. Over his 17-season career, Fernando Alonso won 2 world championships, tying him for 7th all-time. Being a double world champion is quite impressive, but I always get the feeling that Alonso underachieved in his career, not really in terms of performances, but just in terms of success. Like, if you look at the other great drivers of this generation, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, they have 4 and 5 world championships respectively, and still maybe even the potential to win a few more before they retire. So in this 3-part series about Alonso, I'm going to look back at his Formula 1 career, and I'm going to analyze why the Spaniard wasn't as successful as his rivals, and why a driver of his caliber only had the best car for 3 years of his 17-season career. So guys, let's get into it. Here is the rise and fall of Fernando Alonso. Alonso started racing at the age of 3 and was extremely successful in karts, winning the Spanish karting championships in 1993 and becoming the junior karting world champion in 1996. And he continued to climb the motorsport ladder, later moving up to Formula 3000. And at the end of 1999, a young Alonso earned his first Formula 1 test in Jerez with the Italian team Minardi. He drove superbly during this test, setting a lap time 1.5 seconds quicker than the next fastest driver. This incredible performance caught the attention of Giancarlo Minardi and, of course, the infamous Flavio Briatore. And make sure you remember his name because you're going to be hearing about him a lot more throughout this series. But back to Alonso. So his impressive pace was enough to land him a test driver role at Benetton for 2000, and the following season, Alonso was signed by Minardi. He made his debut at the 2001 Australian Grand Prix, and at the time, he was the 3rd youngest driver to start a Formula 1 race at the age of 20. So Minardi was one of the smaller teams, and as a result, Alonso spent most of his debut season at the back of the grid. Nevertheless, a rookie Alonso still pulled off some impressive performances in the uncompetitive Minardi, including outqualifying teammate Tasso Marquez by a whopping 2.6 seconds on his debut race weekend. To be honest, I've never heard of Alonso's teammate before, but still, it's quite impressive to outqualify your teammate by that big of a margin in your first Formula 1 weekend. And just to give you some context and a better understanding of Alonso's maiden season, many similarities can be drawn from George Russell's rookie season. This season, Russell is most of the time at the back of the grid and is almost never fighting for points, but every now and then he puts up a really impressive performance or a really good qualifying lap, and a lot of people think that Russell can be a future world champion. So that was basically the situation that Alonso was in, and despite being near the back of the grid, his impressive rookie season did not go unnoticed. And the following season in 2002, he became the Renault test driver and completed 1,642 laps of tracks around the world. The following season, Alonso became Renault's 2nd driver, replacing Jenson Button. And at the time, this decision was quite a controversial one because Button had done a solid job and people felt that it was unfair that he got replaced. Renault team principal Flavio Briatore received harsh criticism as a result of this decision. His response: "Time will tell if I am wrong." Controversy aside, for the first time, a 21-year-old Fernando Alonso finally had a competitive car and could show the world what he could do. So 2003 was Fernando's first big season in Formula 1. He had a fairly competitive car and was going up against a more experienced teammate in Jarno Trulli. The pressure was on, and Alonso had to show that he was worth the hype. Well, Alonso did not disappoint. In only his second race for Renault at the Malaysian Grand Prix, he took pole position, becoming the youngest driver to do so. He finished third in that race, taking his first of 97 career podiums. Alonso followed it up with another podium finish at the Brazilian Grand Prix, and then took second at his home race in Spain. Alonso continued his impressive form throughout the middle of the season, and then his first Formula One victory came at the 2003 Hungarian Grand Prix. The Spaniard took pole, had an excellent getaway, and pretty much dominated the race from there. He won by a whopping 17 seconds over McLaren's Kimi Räikkönen, and Alonso even lapped championship leader Michael Schumacher. Not only was this his first of 32 race wins, 22-year-old Fernando Alonso became the youngest ever race winner in Formula One, breaking Bruce McLaren's 43-year-old record. The Renault driver finished 6th in the 2003 championship with 55 points, completely annihilating teammate Jarno Trulli. In his first big season, Fernando Alonso proved people wrong and silenced the doubters. There was no doubt that this guy was the real deal and was a future world champion. However, winning that first world championship wouldn't be easy. Ferrari, led by Michael Schumacher, were still the dominant force in Formula One, and the German driver cruised to a record 7th world championship in 2004. Fernando had a difficult start to the season and was being outperformed by his teammate Trulli, who took victory at Monaco while Alonso crashed in the tunnel. However, Alonso managed to turn things around, and by mid-season, Alonso was now the better driver at Renault. He finished on the podium in France, Germany, and Hungary. Towards the end of the season, Trulli's relationship soured with Flavio Briatore and the rest of the team, and 3 races before the end of the season, Trulli was replaced by Jacques Villeneuve. Despite not having won a race that season, Alonso finished 4th in the championship, bettering his 6th place from the previous season. As dominant as Ferrari were, they were not invincible. In 2005, there was a regulation change regarding the tires. Now, the tires were much harder, and now they had to last the entire race. This benefited all of the teams that used Michelin tires. The teams that ran Bridgestone tires, namely Ferrari, suffered massively as a result of this regulation change. Renault, on the other hand, ran Michelin tires, and they nailed the 2005 regulations. They were the team to beat at the start of 2005, and a determined Alonso took full advantage of this, winning 4 of the first 7 races. With Schumacher and Ferrari struggling with tires, Alonso's only championship rival was Kimi Räikkönen of McLaren. The McLaren was fast but fragile. The car was often quicker than the Renault, but suffered from numerous reliability issues and breakdowns. Alonso, on the other hand, was more consistent and made fewer mistakes than Räikkönen. Although he had the best overall package, the Spaniard was still able to show why he was such a great driver, and there was no better example than the 2005 San Marino Grand Prix. You know how I said that Ferrari couldn't get their Bridgestones figured out? Well, at Imola, they did. The Ferrari was an absolute beast in the hands of Michael Schumacher, but qualifying didn't go as planned, and he started the race down in 14th. The fast but fragile McLaren, driven by Kimi Räikkönen, took pole, with Alonso qualifying in 2nd. At the start of the race, Räikkönen managed to pull out a large gap over Alonso, but he characteristically retired on lap 9 due to driveshaft problems. Alonso inherited the lead and was untroubled until lap 50, when Schumacher, who had cut through much of the field, emerged out of the pits right on Alonso's tail. With 12 laps to go, Alonso had to defend against a 7-time world champion in superior machinery. However, the young Alonso was unfazed by Schumacher's challenge and held off the Ferrari with one of the greatest displays of defensive driving in Formula One history. Alonso's car placement was impeccable, ensuring that Schumacher wouldn't be able to get past despite the pace advantage. This amazing drive convinced each and every person in Formula One that if there was anyone capable of taking Schumacher's crown, it would be Alonso. And that is exactly what's happened. With a third place finish in Brazil, Alonso became the 2005 Formula One World Champion, ending Michael Schumacher's 5-year run of dominance and becoming the youngest world champion in history at just 24 years old. Only Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton have bettered this record since. So after winning his first world championship with Renault, Alonso surprisingly signed a contract with McLaren for 2007, meaning that 2006 would be his final season with Renault. It actually turned out to be one of the few moves in his career that worked out for him, as Renault declined after Alonso's departure. Clearly, Alonso didn't feel that Renault's dominance would last, and he felt that going to a different team would be the best long-term option. However, the reigning world champion couldn't think about McLaren just yet, as he had to defend his title with Renault for 2006. Alonso came out swinging, winning 7 of the first 10 races and finishing second in the other 3. After 9 races, Alonso had scored 84 of the 90 available points. He was absolutely dominating the competition, and it looked like it would be an easy season. However, Michael Schumacher, who had announced his retirement that year, wanted to retire as world champion, and he didn't go out without a fight. Ferrari's resurgence meant that they were the team to beat in the second half of the 2006 season, allowing Schumacher to close the gap to Alonso in the championship. This phase of the season saw some amazing duels between the two world champions, but ultimately it was Alonso who came out on top, becoming world champion of 2006. Fernando Alonso had won back-to-back titles, ending Schumacher's and Ferrari's dominance, and this marked a seismic shift in the balance of power. Schumacher was dethroned, and the new king of F1 was crowned. Fernando Alonso was a double world champion and was now the guy to beat. Like I said earlier, Alonso left Renault for McLaren in 2007 and embarked on a new quest to win world championships with McLaren. But Alonso knew that he was the best driver, and if McLaren could provide him with the best car, he would almost certainly win the world title. Alonso knew that achieving the same success with McLaren would be quite tough, but he had no idea of the challenge that lay ahead. And that challenge came in the form of rookie Lewis Hamilton. However, I'm going to end things here and leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger, but I really hope that you enjoyed part 1 of this series. I mainly focused on Alonso's rise to prominence in this video, but don't worry, in part 2, I'll look more at the nitty-gritty stuff and the controversies with Alonso of the late 2000s. But remember, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel Kids Love F1 for more great F1 content. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.